The first thing to know with working with the swept flange feature is that if you're going to be using that feature quite frequently, you're going to want to add it into either your shortcuts toolbar from the S key or the command manager. To do that, we're going to go ahead and right click in on the command manager, go to customize, come into commands, and the last tool within the sheet metal features is going to be the swept flange, and we'll drag that in. Now before I go into the swept flange, we're going to take a quick look at the miter flange just to show a quick limitation. So if I create some sort of profile and try to run it along this edge, it's only going to allow me to create miter flanges along the straight edges. Whereas now that I have this sketch, but if instead I come into a swept flange and choose the profile and then define a path by selecting out edges, this tool is going to allow you to sweep this profile along that edge. We have a few of the same options as we do in the other tools, changing the material position, as well as changing the settings for the bend allowance as well as the relief type. We can also make this partial. And I'll go ahead and hide away this plane. And now if we hit the flatten button, this is going to show us how much material we have. So this feature isn't really for parts where you're going to be creating individual bends. This is more like if you wanted to punch out this entire shape in one operation, the swept flange is going to be a good option for creating this geometry, as it'll give you that entire material shape for the flat pattern. Once you create a swept flange, you can also try creating one on top of the initial. And this will work once in a while, and in some cases it won't work. So generally you'll want to build out your swept flange profile into a single feature. So in some cases you will be able to select out edges, other cases you won't for a second swept flange. So once again, you'll generally want to keep it all in one feature. In this method we created a swept flange from a base that we already had. You can also create swept flanges directly from sketches. So here I have the profile I want to work with, and I have several path sketches. So this is drawn up on the right plane, and my front sketch is drawn on the front plane. So if I choose the two, it'll allow me to create a swept flange, and since this is a new sheet metal part, it'll also bring in the sheet metal parameters. If I go ahead and delete that out, we'll take a look at the next sketch. And this is a curved sketch. So if I try to create a swept flange from this, I'm not going to see a preview, and it's not because this is curved. I'll get this error that the profile doesn't intersect the edge for the path. And the reason I'm getting this is that the path has to be normal to the plane that the profile is created on. So since this is on the front plane and this is on the right plane, this path has to be normal to the front plane. So if I add in a construction geometry and make these tangent, I can come in and create the swept flange. And once again, these will flatten out to the amount of material that you're going to need. Lastly, this is roughly the same operation, but this is drawn up on the top plane instead of the right plane. So once again, as long as this sketch or the initial line of the sketch is normal to this front plane, we'll be able to create that swept flange.